Hey everybody, Brandon here, welcome back to another King's Indian attack video. We are playing against d5 today, so that'll be fun. Are they going to go for knight c6? Again, guys, just remember, the pros about starting with knight f3 and g3 stuff is if you're a d4 player, try starting with knight f3 anyways, because most people are going to play moves like knight c6 early, and d4 would objectively be the best move here and might even offer an advantage because this knight is misplaced on c6. However, we are not going to be doing that because this is a King's Indian attack and that feels a little untruthful to the opening. So we're just going to play our normal setup here with castling. So they're going for kind of like a Yobava London, actually. This is what we can look at it as. So because it's a kind of like a Yobava London, how should we play this? Let me think. Because I haven't seen this, I don't remember seeing this setup yet. But it's always good to be aware of other openings because sometimes there's transposition. So this looks like a reverse Yobava London where we played a King's Indian attack or a defense against it, except we're tempo up. My main inclination is to play c4, go into those exchanges, but c2 might be a little weak. I actually like knight c3 as well, going for e4. They might go knight f6 here. The thing is, yeah, we're not really scared of d4 in these positions because we're happy to actually move back and play moves like either e3 or e4 to chip away at the center where it feels like they're a little underdeveloped. So yeah, now e4 looks quite good. And we're getting this space imbalance. I think we had this last time as well. Ooh, this looks like a pawn. And they might be able to take on g3. I don't know if that's kind of correct though. If they were to do that. So if they take on g3, I'm going to be fine with that. I can't play knight c7 because they can recapture with the bishop. That's actually very important to note. Here, they go back to attack it, so I can play rook e1, or I can play knight to f4. I like knight to f4, just attacking the bishop and asking what's up. If they end up taking on f4, then that's also really good for us. So we're up a pawn already, which is really nice. They missed that d5 was hanging. Yeah, and now I like giving a check. I don't know if it's necessary. Maybe just something like h3 looks pleasant as well. Just asking where this bishop's going because it keeps moving around, right? Like when you see a piece move like this over and over again, you get the temptation to punish it. And again, we're actually really happy about this exchange because this bishop is going to find a little bit of trouble finding a home. Let's go rook e1. So we could go knight h5 here, attacking g7. But we could also go b3. This is a little unusual, but fianchettoing the bishop makes a little bit of sense here. If ever g5, then I think knight h5 should be okay. So they're going to fianchetto, or they're going to castle long, excuse me, not fianchetto. Let's just play king h2. They're going to castle. It doesn't really make sense to do anything else for them. And then let's retreat this guy. Because all of a sudden, we want to play this bishop to b2. But the problem is if we play bishop b2, they take on f4, right? So it's just best to move this guy back. And also, now, if bishop b4, we have c3, followed by d4. We should be a little careful. I don't think g4 is something to worry about. Bishop to b2 does create a direct threat on their rook, so they have to respond to it. I mean, they can play g4, but we do win the exchange from it. Now, knight g1. Knight g1's funny. Maybe knight d4 is more accurate, though. They both have the same idea of meeting g4 with h4. So I like knight d4 quite a bit. And I think it's more accurate here. Because it's actually trying to get that bishop off. Or move it to this diagonal where it's really not doing anything useful. So this feels like a very well-timed move, which is great. We're very happy about that. It always feels weird having your king on the same diagonal as one of those bishops. So you want to be mindful of that. It's unlikely to deal with something or come up with something. But here, for example, if we play h4, which I'm going to play, do we ever take on f5 instead? Because they can't take on h3 because we can take on e7. But no, f2 is hanging at the end. So we actually do want to play h4. If they play something like knight g6, we have to be mindful that h4 is actually hanging. Right? This pawn is not defended. So they go h5 themselves. Now it does make sense to take a little bit more. But they might end up taking with the knight. So let's move back. King to g1. The king has done its job, covering the h3 square. And now I want to get it out of this pin. It just feels awkward. And I don't think it was a mistake to play king h2. I think it was a good decision. And now that they've played these moves, all of a sudden I do not need my king over there, and it's actually useful in g1 because now f2 is better defended, and well, we can hope that we have less weaknesses to worry about. But we'll see. Anything like this does not work. Takes. We can't take with the knight though, but the reason why this doesn't work is because we have our bishop defending the knight on d4. Everything is extremely well defended. So they end up taking. And I want to make some expansions on the queen side here with a4, a5. Again, one of the biggest goals when you have this really nice fianchetto bishop is to open up the long diagonal. And actually, kind of a quiz for you guys. If bishop e6, do you ever take this bishop? Actually, even knight g6, do you ever take this bishop? And it might be preference, or maybe not. But I think that there's a reasonable argument for both. One is you get the bishop pair, which I think is a good thing. But the other argument is that when you take on f5, you're getting rid of the bishop that doesn't really have any attacking potential on the side of the board. Whereas this knight could easily have defending potential. And, you know, defensive potential is really nice. So I think I'm going to continue my position with a4 here. Bishop e5. This looks interesting. I can always go c3 to defend. It looks a little awkward. But I think it's not actually that bad. Because if they end up taking, even though they... Oh, wait. You know what I just missed? I think I just missed rook takes e5. I might have just missed rook takes e5. Rook takes e5 is a little bit better. Or after knight takes, something like knight to b5 looks extremely annoying. Giving up that exchange. Now I should probably just have knight to b5 anyways, right? Or knight takes f5 followed by d4. Those also look good. Takes and then even bishop e4. This is kind of an unusual position. I like taking now. And the reason is kind of separate from before. It's because after bishop e4, I think we're in time now with a5, a6. And the argument I'm trying to make is that d3 isn't the weak point. Whereas, you know, maybe it could have been before. So d4 here looks reasonable. It's not actually attacking the bishop. Actually, it kind of is. Because if they take it, or take my queen on d1, I take their queen on f6. So d4 does look like an attacking move. So that's good. And again, we're going for a5, a6. going for the same idea. After a5, I assume a6 will be played. We are up a pawn again. Just something to remember. And hey, if I ever want to get out of this alignment, it's always important to be mindful of the alignment that is in a position. But if I'm ever a little concerned, I can play queen c2. So, quick question. Anything like this in the air? I don't think so, because this guy actually hangs. After knight takes, I think we actually just take on e5, funnily enough. And the reason why is because if we take, and then queen takes, now taking on e5 doesn't work because they can take our queen and we're not attacking their queen in return. And if we can't do that, like in this position, then we could run into some troubles in the future. But luckily, I think we have d takes e5. And then if they take on d1, I simply take on f6. So there's a few ways this position could play out. Queen takes e5 is one of them. Queen takes e5, maybe queen takes d8. It looks like queen takes d8 does work. And the idea is if rook takes, now I have bishop takes b7 check, king takes, and then rook takes on e5. But there's knight f3 check, king g2, and then knight takes e5. So that's something to worry about. If queen takes e5 and I just play something like queen to e2, do I have to worry about f5? Potentially. Because of bishop d3, there's knight to f3 check. But then there's queen takes f3, pawn takes f3, rook takes e5. So that's another thing. These lines are getting complicated, but for good reason. There's always things like bishop takes b7 first. I don't know if that's justified, though. It doesn't look justified after king takes. Because if rook takes e5, rook takes d1, rook takes d1, there's rook takes e5 at the end. And that's kind of the whole point of queen takes d1 originally. So if they go here, I think I can end up taking. Oh, wow. You know what? I think I might have miscalculated. Let me think. So if I take here and then take on e1, I take back, and then they go knight f3 check. That's a little bit of a problem, right? Knight f3 check takes, and then they can take on e1, and I'm not in time to move my bishop. Interesting. So we're getting a little bit of a puzzle on our hands. So, okay, whoops. Let me calculate here. Rook takes d1 instead. Knight f3 check. If I have to take it, that's a little rough. Right now, they're +6. So if I take here, it's only -1. Their knight is hanging, actually. So they do have to do something about that, potentially. Takes. Knight f3 check. The thing is, what I was looking at is king f1, knight takes e1, bishop f5 check, but it actually defends their knight for them. Is that such a bad variation for me to go in? I think so. So let's play... We got to do something tricky. I think that's the answer here. Let's take on d1 instead of taking the queen, because I don't like losing the exchange like that. So knight f3 check. So there's two ways to answer. There's king g2. And king g2, if knight takes e1, rook takes e1, bishop takes, my idea is I have c4. And if rook takes, then I have bishop b7. Yeah, let's play king g2. They're gonna take the exchange for sure. So this is just a way to make things a little bit more messy. So I don't think that works. I think we can take here on f6. Their queen was hanging for a while there, but they couldn't do that. Yeah, we definitely messed that up somewhere. Those complications looked like they were a little menacing and maybe not in a good way. Yeah, my opponent ends up resigning here. Looks like there were some blunders in the game, unsurprisingly. Let's find them out. So let's go to the end. Yeah, this Yobava London, I'm assuming that knight c3 might be a good reply. It says a3, and generally, again, that's actually something that is played, like a6 or c6 ideas. So that makes sense as well. It's just I wanted to go for maybe e4 this time around, but I think the idea is after a5, c4. And you do create some weaknesses on the queen side, but you do get this this bishop open kind of as a return here. So something like this could be played, and might not immediately be pleasant after something like bishop to b3. But the argument you're trying to make is that this bishop's pretty okay. So like knight d4, for example. So, okay, knight c3. Again, I'm not really scared of d4. As you can see, Engine just hates the move. Bishop d6, e4. And we were happy to win the pawn here. So yeah, let's see. So this was all okay. Bishop to b2. Knight d4. h4. King g1. Yeah. This wasn't really surprising to me. Queen d2 is popping up. a4 was a little slow. c3 is best, which is good. I was looking at rook takes e5 as well, and it looks like this is okay. Not as big of an advantage, though. My idea was knight b5 here. Oh, but knight f3 check. Gotcha. Knight f3 check is a bit annoying. Right. I missed this move. And of course, something like knight c6 I don't think is so great. You can already look at maybe bishop takes c6. The problem is there's pawn takes c6, and take on a7 is a mistake because the knight gets lost. But obviously if queen takes, then we win the queen. That's the idea. But yeah, if we play something just like queen d2, we have more than enough compensation for the exchange. We're also up a pawn, and it's really hard to get at our king. The only idea is like f5, f4, but that's not coming anytime soon. So c3, knight takes f5, and bishop e4, followed by d4. Looked like this all was good. And actually, I should have taken on h4. Taking on e5 is a mistake. So after rook takes d1, the line that is recommended is e takes f6, but of course I assess this as worse because I was looking at rook takes e1, knight f3 check, and after bishop takes f3, the problem is rook takes e1, and we're not in time to play like a king move and move our bishop. If we could, then we would be okay. Like bishop d5, we probably just pick up the pawn and win the game. But the problem is after we move our king anywhere, then they take on f3, and this game is over for sure. So that's why I tried rook a takes d1 instead. Knight f3 check is the only interesting move. And I tried king g2 just to set a few more traps in the position. My idea was rook takes e1, rook takes e1. It looked like their only option was rook takes e5, where after c4, they have to see rook takes e4. And bishop takes f6, rook takes e1. They do get the exchange again, but they have to find a lot of forcing lines to do this. Because I did assess that it was a mistake. Or like that was already in trouble from taking on f6 there. So that's kind of what I was going for, is I felt like this position was a little bit more tricky potentially because rook takes e4 is not an obvious move. Like if they play something else here, so again here knight takes, rook takes e5, c4. If they play something else, then they just lose this piece. Like let's just say like queen d6 or something, bishop takes e5. Now they're actually in a lot of trouble. And again, bishop takes e5 works because there's bishop takes b7 at the end, which I did calculate all that, but I didn't calculate this part correctly here, and that's why I started going into a bit of a think there. So again, yeah, it felt like bishop takes f3. There's just no hope after queen takes f3 because they have like h4 stuff coming as well, and maybe bringing the rook to the h file maybe. But this, like, my coordination feels a little weird, and I only have a bishop for a rook. Their pieces are coordinating extremely well, and this would be losing. So everything up until this point was fine. Taking on e5, it was just a tactical mistake. Actually, one of the top moves is queen d3, but taking on h4 is also okay. I was a little concerned about positions like this because I can't take on e5, as I mentioned before. Rook takes d1 is now playable. But this is actually, funnily enough, still better than the move I played in the game. Instead, just playing the move bishop g2 is better. And the idea is, if they play something like queen h2, we have king f1, and there's not really a great way to coordinate the pieces against my king. And meanwhile, if you ever move your bishop, I'm trading some stuff off, and the position's going to get easier and easier to play. Like queen d3, the other rook to e1, start trading more and more and more. Well, actually, not the other rook to e1 immediately, queen d2, and then rook e1, so I can take with the queen. If king takes, then bishop and g2 would be hanging. But yeah, I think that was actually really instructive still. We learned a few things. So against these Yobaba systems, maybe a3 is a little bit better. And our threat is b4 now, kind of going for this fianchetto. You can see some similar type of things in the semi-Slav. Like if knight f6 here, maybe b4, followed by c4. So like usually it's reversed here, but these positions can be quite good and actually very dangerous. For black in this case, and for white when the semi-Slav is occurring, because you see these types of a3 b or a6 b5s or a3 b4s played quite a bit to get the fianchetto in. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. A little bit of a tactical misstep, but hey, all right, we still won, so the streak is still alive. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.